Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia. I am a wedding photographer at Lydia Rachel Photography and your host. On today's episode, I chat with the lovely Kim. You may know Kim. She is a wedding vendor herself. She works on the amazing wedding planning team at One Fine Day, and she's also recently married, so you get to hear the whole experience from both sides. We chat through her whole love story, meeting at a Fatboy Slim concert, how she kind of proposed to herself, being engaged for a while, and then actually setting a date and planning a wedding in 5 months. Planning something small and intimate, a lunchtime reception, and then an after party, and a few of the different things they did for their day. We talk about working with vendors that you trust and handing the vision and creative freedom to them. A few unexpected things that happened on their wedding day and how it just makes for a great story after. There is loads of amazing advice in this one. We talk about a bit of her background, her work at One Fine Day, the kind of services they offer, some wedding trends she is seeing, and just some really incredible wisdom around focusing on what matters most. I loved chatting to Kim. She's full of incredible stories and just a lovely person. Should be so great to have involved in your day. Make sure you pop over to our Instagram to see some photos and all her vendors there too. And let's get right into it. Enjoy episode 71 with Kim. Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I know people always love these episodes when I get to talk to a recent bride who's also a wedding vendor, and you are an amazing planner as well. One of the best in my opinion. You've done some incredible weddings over the years, so excited to chat through all of that.
Thank you. It's nice to be here and share some of my experience, and especially from the other side, being a bride, because I've never sort of had that experience before. I was planning weddings, but not as the bride, so to speak. So I found it quite interesting. Pretty much decided to get married this time last year. So we had got married on the 2nd of February and we had, 5 months to plan? Because
it's a quick turnaround.
I just wanted to get it done because I had so many other weddings to do. I didn't want to have to wait. I know a lot of people, they want to do it. We've got some clients who are 2 years in advance, and to me that's really organised. I just wanted to do it quickly, and I wanted it to be less stressful. So the sooner it was, the sooner I can not get it out of the way, but get it out of the way, sort of thing.
Yeah.
We really wanted to get married during summer, which was then a challenge for me because I'm a wedding planner, so we have weddings in summer. So I had to work around that. And I guess I didn't realize how stressed I was until afterwards, because I felt lighter after the wedding. We decided to do a wedding that didn't look like a One Fine Day wedding because I didn't want it to work. So we had planned to get married on top of the Remarkables, just do a heli with a few close friends, and then go for lunch at Airburn afterwards. But on the day of the wedding, it was raining, so we couldn't go in our helicopter.
If you can tell me a bit about you and your partner, how you guys met, and sort of your life together.
We met going to a Fatboy Slim concert. We're friends. And the reason why we decided to get married on the 2nd of February was the date that we met a few years ago at the concert. But we didn't get together then. I actually went away because I was working in Ibiza for the summer. So I would do summer in New Zealand, summer in Spain. So I left. And we got together pretty much when I got back. I've got experience working in hospitality, restaurants, bars, cocktail bars. I started doing weddings with a local catering company. I won't say who it is for any future brides who come to One Fine Day, because I don't want them to think that I'm pushing them into a caterer because I work there. But it's a nice catering company that I work for. And I kind of worked alongside One Fine Day with that catering company. Knew the owners, knew all the girls. And while I was in Spain, I'd actually left catering to go to Spain the last time that I went. And I wasn't sure if I was going to come back to New Zealand or not. And then I'd messaged Kath, who owned One Fine Day at the time, and told her I was looking for a job. And she offered me she offered me a full-time contract to cover maternity leave for one of the girls, and it kind of just went from there. And now I've been with One Fine Day for 4.5 years.
So cool. And yeah, a bit more about your wedding story. Can you tell us a bit about your proposal story? So you guys dated for a while and then yeah, how did that all go down?
We were together, so we were together for 2.5 years when Steve proposed. So after COVID, we hadn't obviously been home for 3 years because of COVID. We could obviously couldn't get out of the country. Steve's from Wales, so neither of us had seen any of our families. So we planned a big trip to go home. And we went to Croatia while we were there. And we went to a festival when we were in Croatia, because that's what we do. Like, we love music, hence we met going to a Fatboy Slim concert. And we went to this festival. And I jokingly say to Steve all the time, if you love me that much, where's my ring? And I'd say it to him jokingly all the time. So on the last day of the festival, we decided to go into Split. We booked like a nice hotel. Our friends had stayed in the hotel a week before us, so they'd randomly like got in contact with the hotel and sent the hotel loads of pictures of us from the festival. And when we got there, I was a bit suspicious because the room was full of pictures of us from the festival. And I thought it was connected to the proposal, but it was actually just them playing a joke on us. So it was actually nothing to do with it. But that made me suspicious at the time because when we checked into our hotel, there was there was pictures in the most random places. There was pictures of us in the bathroom. There's a picture of us in the safe. They had like a glass desk and there was pictures underneath the glass just of us. So I got really suspicious then. I thought, why did they do that? It must be something special. So then that night, Steve had organized dinner and he's usually like super chill, relaxed. And he was kind of just being a bit weird. He was telling me to hurry up and he was just getting a bit antsy, like saying that we're going to miss our Uber that we'd booked and we needed to hurry up and get to the sunset because it was like this sunset spot in Split that everybody goes to and it's really beautiful. And he was saying, we need to hurry up. Like, the sunset is the only thing I wanted to see while we're in Croatia, which I thought that was weird because he hadn't told me about this sunset that he wanted to see. So I was like, oh, he's definitely going to propose when we get there. So we got there and it was cloudy. So you couldn't even see the sunset and there was a lot of people there. Um, and I think he got a bit nervous because there were so many people there, so he didn't propose. So that was an anticlimax because I was getting really nervous, thinking he's going to do it, he's going to do it, and then he didn't. So then he booked dinner, so we went down for dinner. And at this point, I thought he's not going to propose now because we'd gone for a drink and then we went to this nice restaurant. And at the end of dinner, like it was the most amazing dinner like that we'd had. We went to this cute little Italian restaurant and sat in a courtyard, and the food was amazing. And so afterwards, we were just like chatting and saying how, like, what a great trip that we'd had and how good the food was. And so I jokingly said to Steve, we've had such a great time, but where's my ring? And he goes, oh, well, thank you for reminding me. And he pulled it out. So did he propose to me or did I propose to him?
Pulled it out of him for sure.
Yeah, so I
Oh.
kind of like asked for it and then he got it out. And obviously he mumbled his words. He did say, supposed to say, will you be my dancing partner forever? But he just went, blah, blah, blah. So I had to get him to repeat it, and obviously I said yes. So that did actually come up in our wedding ceremony as well, like who proposed to who, because I asked for it.
Oh, so good. Such a good story. And were you sort of like straight into wedding planning from then? Did you, yeah, you touched on kind of a bit of how it all went, but yeah, did you have like a vision in mind from working in weddings for quite a while and then, yeah, what you wanted?
Not really. So we got engaged in 2022, but we didn't actually decide to like put a date on it until 2023. So it was a year after we'd been engaged for a whole year. We didn't really know what we were going to do just because we're both from the UK. Our families, there's always that family element, like, can everybody come? Can they not? If we get married in a very short space of time, will our friends and family be able to afford to come in that short space of time? So what we decided to do was that we'd do it really quickly and then we'll do something else when we go back to the UK. But I hadn't really thought about what that was going to look like. I just knew that I didn't really want it to look like work. And so I've been working in weddings with 1.8 and catering for the last 10, 11 years. So I've pretty much been to all of the venues in Queenstown a lot. And also like we're we're saving to build a house as well. And weddings are expensive, as we all know. So it was like, what can we do that's not going to be too expensive? That doesn't look like work for me, but that's, like works for both of us. So that's why we had decided, let's go and do a heli wedding. We'll get married on top of Remarkables, and then we'll just go for lunch with all of our friends, and then we'd go somewhere afterwards. Obviously that didn't work out because it rained. It was really strange because the summer we just had, it pretty much rained at some point on every day that we did a wedding, whether it was in the morning or it was during lunchtime or whether it was like later on when everyone was at the party. It rained.
The
So
one I did down there did too and cancelled their heli. So yeah,
yeah, like there was a wedding the day after mine as well, and their heli got cancelled. So theme of the season, I think, like it rained for everybody. So even I didn't escape that, and I got to see it from the other side of how stressful it is looking at the weather for the wedding. I looked at the weather
I don't
every day.
think any bride avoids that anywhere in New Zealand.
That was stressful, but around about the time that we decided to start planning, this is when Airburn was, I actually know the owner of Airburn and had done a couple of events at his house, and he was telling me about the complex. So kind of thought, well, that'll be a good place to go for our lunch because nobody else has been there before. We were the first people who, not to get married there because we didn't actually get married there, but we were the first sort of wedding party to go there. So I kind of liked that we were the first to do it, then making it different from any other wedding that I've done before. But I also didn't want to pay a venue hire. As soon as you start paying for buildings, venue hires, then or exclusivity, you've got to pay like a minimum fee. You've got to pay, you know. Um, and like I said, we were on a bit of a budget, so that just worked for us. We just booked lunch for 50 people.
Such a nice new spot down there as well. Yeah.
It's really nice, and I think they are doing a lot more weddings there, but at the time, it had only been open for like 2 months. And then we were trying to figure out what to do afterwards because we did only have lunch there. And Steve's Steve's friend is a manager of a bar in Arrowtown called the Hyde, and they've got a license till 2:30. So we all went there afterwards, and we didn't have to pay the venue.
Who
So
you
that was
know
great.
for sure.
That kind of made it look very different to a wedding that I would normally produce.
And how did you go with wedding outfits? What was that whole process like?
I didn't have a good experience.
Oh.
So I think being in the wedding industry, you always have I think you just like, you have an idea. If you're not married, then you do have an idea of what you want based on what other people have had before you. And you see my wedding Instagram, it's just wedding dresses and everything's wedding. So you see these nice dresses. I found it a Rudasine dress that I absolutely loved. And that was before we decided to get married. I was absolutely in love with this dress, and I was adamant that this was the one. And there's only one bridal shop in New Zealand where you can try them on. I went up to Auckland to try on a dress, but I'd done it really quickly. We'd been to Hawke's Bay to meet a couple because we were doing a wedding in Tomato House. So we'd been to Hawke's Bay, and on the way back, my flight was through Auckland, so I changed my flight so that I could go and try this dress on. But I only had an hour to do it before my next flight, so I did it
Mm.
in a rush. And when I got there, the dress looked terrible on me. So I was really disappointed. But I think because I was in such a rush and I wasn't really like feeling it,
Mm.
I didn't enjoy the experience. So when I tried that dress on, wasn't really feeling great. And I tried a few more dresses on like afterwards and just left really deflated. So I came back to Queenstown and just wasn't, I guess it's a weird feeling because before you start trying on wedding dresses, you don't know what it's going to be like. So that's not something that I'm familiar with in terms of wedding. Like, I would never have tried a dress on unless you're getting married. I just didn't enjoy it. But then So then I decided to not let that affect me and go back. So I went back to Auckland a week later. I had a bit more time. I went back to that bridal shop and tried on a few dresses, and then I went to another one. So I went to Felicity's in Auckland and just had a much better experience when I'd given myself a little bit more time. I'd done my hair, I had a bit more sleep, I felt good. I took one friend with me who was like brutally honest in her opinions, which I would advise. If you're going to take people, just take someone who's going to be brutally honest, but also has good style, because the dresses that I thought I wanted didn't really suit me, and the ones that she chose for me looked better. So we ended up picking a dress from Felicity's that I absolutely loved and ended up buying that one. And it was cheaper than the Rudisian dress. So in girl math, I was like, oh, well, this one, so I've saved some money.
Oh, so good. Definitely can be a stressful process, but yeah, glad it worked out well in the end. So you were kind of planning to elope, so you didn't have a bridal party or for that ceremony part anyway. How did you come to that decision?
We decided not to, just because I've got some really good friends back home who wouldn't have been able to make it, and I just didn't want to have to choose between my friends that I have here. I think like we'd already not upset our friends and family back home, but they're disappointed that they couldn't be involved in it. And so, just to be fair to everybody, we just decided that we wouldn't choose, but we did choose people to come in the heli with us. So my good friend Lucy came and was supposed to come. We didn't actually go on it, and then one of my best friends lives in Australia, so she came over. But they weren't bridal party as such. They were just kind of like support people.
And did you find that whole guest list process quite easy? Was that difficult for you? Obviously, hard having a lot of family and friends overseas, but yeah, did you find it hard narrowing down the guest list for this one?
I think we originally only wanted 20 people to come, because again, we wanted to keep it like really low budget. We didn't want to spend a lot of money. But then once you get into it, I think we found the table plan and organizing like who to come the most challenging, because you can't invite one person without inviting that person, and you don't want to upset anybody. But how do you eliminate who gets to come and who doesn't? Because we'd made some friends with people who became our best friends really quickly, and then there's other friends who we'd known for a really long time as well. It was hard. I did find the guest list hard, and we ended up with, I think it was 47 people for the lunch. But then we open invited when we went to Hyde. We did an open invite, so we invited the rest of our sort of extended friends to that.
Cool. After party.
Yes.
You've given us a little bit of an overview of the day and how it all went, but yeah, any other like highlights or favorite moments from the day?
In terms of the actual day, because we were going in a helicopter, we needed to do a first look. So we stayed in the same property as each other the night before, because I didn't think like that it was natural for us to not be together the night before. I know a lot of people like to do it traditionally, where they both stay in different accommodation and they've got their bridal party, groom's parties with them. But because we didn't have that as well, like it just made sense for us to stay together that night. And we had a few of my girlfriends stay with us that night as well. So when we got up in the morning, it was like nice to kind of wake up together and be excited about what was going to happen that day. I think we sent some of the boys out to get us some breakfast. They went and got us some like stuff from the bakery. And so we got ready together. So when our photographers, Stephanie and Nikita, came, we were there. We were all together. So it was easy for them. They didn't have to like go to another location. And then we had Libby from Nosy Parker come and do content creation for us, which was great. But then we kind of like stayed separate. So once I'd had my hair and makeup done, Steve went off into his room and I went upstairs. So like, he couldn't actually see what was going on. And then we kind of set up our first look outside the property. We stayed in this really cute stone cottage opposite Amersfield. Kind of looks a bit more like alpine, Queenstowny, what you'd expect for like a mountain sort of area. And we did our first look outside. When I walked out, the boys could see me and one of the boys started crying, so I must have looked good. So that was quite cute that we did our first look outside. As I've mentioned, like in other questions, our helicopter did get cancelled because it was raining. So it was a little bit raining when we were doing our first look, but the sun was out at the same time, so we kind of like didn't mind too much. And then we had gone to our plan B, which was to get married in an art gallery, which is called Giverny Art Gallery, sorry, on the Washot Over Road. So what we did once we found out our heli was cancelled, Steve started a group chat with all of our 50 friends who were coming to lunch and gave them 2 hours notice that they were now invited to our ceremony. So that was quite cool. All the girls were panicking. Some people were in the swimming pool. They had to get dragged out by their husbands. So it caused a little bit of carnage, giving everybody 2 hours notice. But I think it worked out really well. That when it got to saying our vows, the ceremony that Emily had written for us, a lot of it mentioned our friends who were actually in the crowd. And so our ceremony and our vows actually made more sense having all of those people there rather than the way we were supposed to do it on the mountain. So I think that worked, even though it's not what we planned for, it actually worked out a lot better. Yeah, and then we ended up going. I think one of our backup choices was to get married at Thirlby Domain. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Thirlby Domain, Dalefield. It's like a private property. It's got like some beautiful ruins and there's like a beautiful garden. We've done quite a few ceremonies there in the past with One Fine Day, so that was our second option. But I really liked that. But because it was raining, we didn't go for that one. So we then went there when the rain had stopped. We went there for some photos, and we'd sent everybody else off to Ayrburn to have like lunch and drinks, and we caught up with them afterwards. Yeah, and then after that, like the lunch that we had at Ayrburn was beautiful. There was so much food, we didn't eat it all. It was all like sharing style. By the time the dessert came out, we were all full, so we put it all in takeaway boxes. We had pizza boxes full of pavs and I think it was like brownies and other things. We took them to hide with us and we didn't eat them. We got put on the side on a chair and they got forgotten about. And then we ended giving them to the staff at the end of the night. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but kind of I DJ on the side, so side hustle, and Steve's the DJ. So what we did at Hyde is we did a little back to back session. Steve hogged the decks so I could get on, but we did a little in some of our wedding photos, which I can show you. We did a little back to back session on the deck. So we didn't have a first dance, we had a first mix instead. I didn't really want to do a first dance. That's not really a bit of me. So yeah, we did a first mix, which was quite cool. And we played the song we walked down the aisle to was like exited the ceremony was Fatboy Slim Praise You, because we met at a Fatboy Slim concert, and so that was the song that we played for our first mix, and everybody just went crazy. So it was such a good day, like, but it just went so quickly. And instead of having like the traditional guest book, we had records that we got everybody to sign, and just so we can frame them because that's a bit more of us. So we had like special labels made for the records that said the Toms, just so that was a bit more personal because we're very music orientated, as you can tell. Me and Steve were the last people to leave the venue at 2:30 a.m. We didn't even book ourselves a taxi. Like, this is me, the organizer. Everybody else had left, and we were the last people, and we had to squeeze in a taxi with our friends because it's Arrowtown, and there's very minimal taxis at 2:30 a.m. in Arrowtown. They got the last taxi, so I had to sit on my friend's knee in the back so that we could get dropped off at our accommodation. So it was quite an event.
Oh, so good. Yeah, sounds like an epic day and just, yeah, really good like representation of who you guys are.
It's like a big party.
Yeah,
What
so
you want,
good.
right?
Exactly.
And then because we didn't get to go in our helicopter, we actually arranged to go in the heli 4 weeks later because Stefan and Nikita came back to town. So it was really nice to sort of extend the celebration and do it a little bit later. So we got dressed up again. I got my hair done again. I got gifted some flowers from Lucy at All Bunched Up, some beautiful dahlias. So thank you, Lucy. Um, and yeah, I had a different vendor do my hair, which was Sarah from Salon U. She's a good friend of ours. but it was just nice to go and do something again and sort of be a bit more in that moment because the wedding day just went so quickly. You just kind of, I don't know, it's hard. Being a vendor on the other side, you're always telling people to be in the moment, but when you're in that moment yourself, it's just so different. So yeah, it was nice to just go off 4 weeks later. And it had snowed. It was March. It was the beginning of March, and it had snowed on the mountain. So when we flew up there, we got some nice wintry photos. I think Nikita had Birkenstocks on with socks, and she'd get snow all over her feet. Um, she did plan that very well. Yeah, the photos that we got like were just so nice that we got on the mountain. And the reason why we had originally planned to get married on top of the mountain was, it's not like weddings in the UK where it's in a hotel and it's flat and there's no landscape. Like we live here and it makes sense to do something with the mountain, and that's why we really chose it. And so yeah, it was good to go and do that afterwards. And I'd highly recommend for anyone else, if you don't get to go for your heli photos, do it after. Get ready again, take some bubbles, celebrate another moment. You're sort of dragging out the celebrations a little bit longer. And it's something else to look forward to because we got our photos in two different lots. So we got our wedding day photos, and then there was the excitement of waiting for the mountain photos afterwards. So that was our day. But it just goes so quick.
Oh, I love that. It's such a good idea. Extending the celebrations. And then, yeah, I think people don't always think about that. If you do get a day that's really rainy, which can happen a lot anywhere in New Zealand, even in summer, that's an option that you can do. You can book in on a nice day like the next week or a few weeks later. And yeah, obviously it's maybe an extra cost to that. But if you're really set on getting photos in this beautiful location you chose, like up a mountain,
Yeah,
then that's definitely an
exactly.
option and a cool memory as well.
If it's already in your budget anyway, and you don't get, because you don't pay for the heli until you go in it. If you already had it within your budget, it's not really extra. You just have to pay the additional for the photographer. We had a couple where it did rain on their wedding day, Izzy and Hayden. They were so keen to go for their heli photos that they actually went the next morning. And I thought they were crazy because they were going to get up and they went for their heli flight. And I think it was at like 10:30 a.m. the next day, but they went and they said they had the best time. And luckily the photographer was still here. So it is worth thinking about doing the mountain photos another day if you're in Queenstown and it just doesn't slightly go to plan.
And yeah, what did you find the hardest part about planning your own wedding? Mentioned a few things, but yeah, is there anything you look back on and regret or would do a bit differently?
I don't think there's anything that I would do differently, but I mean, the obvious would be to have our family there with us,
Yeah. Mm.
our friends from home, but we decided to get married and we just wanted to do it and we didn't really want to have to wait because given the current state of the world and the pandemic and all the other things that have cropped up with our friends, we just thought that it was the right time. So yeah, in hindsight, it would have been nice if our family and friends were there, but we're planning on doing something with them next year when we go home. Yeah, but in terms of planning, that's my job, so I didn't find it
Yeah.
difficult. I obviously had help from my colleagues and other people in the industry who helped us do a few things, but I guess if you know what you're doing, it's pretty straightforward. For anyone who has got no idea how to plan a wedding, it is quite difficult.
If you're happy to talk about your budget, like a ballpark figure of what you spent or how you kind of found that, did you end up blowing your budget a little bit? What was that process like?
We spent 18 grand on our wedding.
Wow,
Um,
impressive.
that's not including outfits, though. Never include your outfits because, like, girl math, again, girl math, if you've already paid for it, it's not included in the budget. And my outfit was way more than what Steve's cost, so we didn't do that. But I think for us, we only wanted to spend, ideally, we only wanted to spend 15 grand. We spent a little bit more than that, but that was everything. And I was gifted quite a lot of stuff being in the industry, so really, I think our wedding should have cost us around 40 to 50, but we were gifted a lot of things. So thanks to all the vendors who gifted us stuff. We're very grateful. We don't have a lot of money to spend on a wedding, we've got other priorities with our house, and so we just thought it was more important to keep our money for our house. And the whole point of the marriage is the marriage, right? Not about how
Exactly.
elaborate the date is. So for us, it was just we wanted to get married and have some friends come and join us and help celebrate. So we didn't feel like we needed to spend a lot of money to do that. And obviously, we didn't have any family here to put their 2 cents in, which probably helped.
Yeah, it was, yeah, absolutely beautiful day, even with spending that much. And it, yeah, it definitely helps to have those relationships in the industry as well. So, and did you guys go on honeymoon at all? I imagine you were kind of in the thick of wedding season, but did you manage to, or are you planning to do something in the future?
It's weird because it kind of feels like we didn't get married, if that makes sense, because all that wedding, that little wedding bubble that we should have been in, didn't last that long for me because I pretty much went to do someone's wedding the next day after mine, and I had a lot of weddings after that. But I wouldn't really change it because we wanted to get married on that date, and that date was special for us. So we haven't had time to do anything yet. I think we're just going to wait until next year.
I feel like this question's a bit irrelevant to you. I usually ask brides if they found any like helpful websites or resources, inspiration and stuff, but I think you probably had all the connections with finding vendors and but yeah, was there anything that helped you with inspo? Were you a Pinterest bride?
No, I wasn't. I actually just obviously I already know the vendors. I've known them all for a long time. Kind of knew who I wanted to use, but also people offered to do stuff for me. I didn't really choose the flowers. I didn't choose the flowers that I had. I didn't choose any of the stationery. I left that up to Kath because Kath, who owned One Fine Day, she's a great stylist. She's got great vision. She's got great taste. I didn't want to have to deal with that stuff. And Michelle Kumi did my flowers, who was Kath's sister. And I just said to Kath, you tell me what you want to do and I'll have that. I trust their vision and I just wanted, they know what I like. They know I didn't want a white wedding. I wanted it to be a little bit different, something unique. So I just left all my trust in them and just said, you know what I like. You just decide and I'll, you know, let you know if I like it, dislike it. But what Kath chose, she kind of like picked the vision for the stationery, and I was really happy with it. And the flowers were beautiful, so I was happy. And I think some people should do that. Like ask the florist what they think. Let the florist decide for you because it's.
Yeah.
I think people get hung up on the tone of a color of a flower too much. Just trust the process. We're all in the industry. We've been doing it for a very long time. If you've got the right people, they're going to pull something beautiful that maybe you couldn't think of or imagine. I was happy with what I was given and I didn't have to think about it.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to like replicate some wedding they've seen online or their Pinterest board or whatever. But yeah, I think that's great advice. Just find really good vendors that you trust and let them sort of execute their vision, have a bit of creative freedom, and might surprise you. But yeah, you might get something really different and beautiful. So love that advice.
Yeah, I would absolutely, if I was doing it again, I'd still do it exactly the same and have somebody else tell me what I'm going to have. Fine. It's less stressful. I didn't really have time to think about those kind of things because I had so many other weddings to plan. So it just made sense to let someone else think for me.
And yeah, how has married life been? You've sort of said straight back to work, but yeah, you'd feel like you got any of those post-wedding blues, even delayed?
Not really, because I do weddings all the time. I did a wedding the day after mine. I only did the ceremony, and then the other girl did the reception. And then the day after that, myself, Steve, and all of our friends, we went to a Carl Cox concert, which was quite fun. So that was like our after party as such. And then I was back to work on the Tuesday and Wednesday, and I had quite a lot of weddings after that. So don't really think I felt the wedding blues as such. But I think that then took away from our experience because I do weddings all the time that I probably didn't feel the same enjoyment as what other people get from it. Obviously, I'm happy to be married, but the overall feeling didn't last that long.
Fair enough. And like you say, it's about the marriage, not just the whole big party. You get to kind of be involved in them all the time.
Yeah, in hindsight, I would have probably done it at a different time. Done it, maybe got married at the end of the season, so that I would have to have a bit of a honeymoon period. But
Sit a little bit
again,
more, yeah.
I wanted that date, so that's the kind of the price you pay for the date.
Cool. We'll go on to talking a bit more about one fine day. So, if you can tell us a little bit more about your background, kind of how you, yeah, you've touched on it a bit, but yeah, how you got into wedding planning, the journey that's led you to where you are today.
So I started working at a catering company when I first moved to New Zealand, and we did lots of weddings. We did a lot of other kind of events, private dinings, but we did a lot of weddings as well. So I'd already had that experience, not to the extent of how much a planner does, but definitely like, when I started, there wasn't all of these other vendors. There was no Flock, there was no Royal Laboratory. There was pretty much just like Party Plus and Monica Party Hire. So I would organise the tables and the linens and the outdoor furniture for people. And that's about as far as planning went. So I kind of had that experience from the catering side. And then I left the catering company to go and live in Spain for the summer. And I decided to come back to New Zealand. And Kath offered me a job at One Fine Day. And then that kind of led me into planning and obviously realizing there's a lot more to it than just the furniture and the linen. There's all the other logistics as well. But when I first started in One Fine Day, I'd only been working in the company for 6 months and then COVID hit. I feel like I didn't learn very much in that 6 months, and then my role became a postponement specialist rather than a planner for the weddings that we had to postpone. And then I think it didn't really pick up again until, was it 2022, 21, 22?
Yeah, I think so. All those years merged together.
That crazy
Mm.
season where we had so many weddings.
Yeah, just catching up on them all. Insane for a while there.
Catching up on all of the weddings, but I just feel like with planning, it's not something that you can just walk into. I feel like every season that I do, I learn something new, and there's always something different that couples are more concentrated towards. And it's definitely this season ahead is definitely more budget focused, whereas before, maybe people before COVID, I think people weren't really conscious of budget, but now they are.
Definitely hearing that from a lot of people. Were you, before you moved to New Zealand, were you kind of in that event space as well? Or did you, yeah, come from that kind of background?
Before I was in New Zealand, I was working in a restaurant, so I was a restaurant manager. I'd worked in restaurants, bars, nightclubs, so always hospitality, like service kind of focused. Not events as such. I think I really just hit more events when I got to Queenstown.
Oh, great experience to have though, and just yeah, that anything that service like customer facing people, yeah, experience is so.
Every job I've ever had has been like customer focused. So
And yeah, can you tell us a little bit about One Fine Day, the kind of services that you guys offer, and yeah, maybe what sort of like a typical client is like for you?
all packages. So with One Pound Day, we most of our clients come for full planning, and they're usually people from overseas. So those kind of people need a bit more help. They don't know who the vendors are. They've never been here. A lot of our clients don't see their venue until the day of because they're in Hong Kong or they're in Singapore or they're in America. So we're really helping them book every sort of aspect, and they're trusting our sort of recommendations. One Day has just changed hands, so we did change our packages a little bit. We used to do a lot of partial planning, but what I'm finding at the minute is that everybody who comes to us is going for full planning now. So yeah, we are helping people from the beginning to the end pretty much. People are coming to us with no idea what their wedding looks like, and we're helping them through the whole process of choosing the venue, choosing the dates, choosing the location, and then choosing the hairdresser, the makeup artist, the transport, like every little thing we're helping them with.
Yeah, definitely it keeps you busy then, I imagine. A lot more involved than, yeah, partial or, yeah, on the day or month of, I like to say,
Yeah,
planners. And then, yeah, you're obviously there on the day, making sure everything goes smoothly as well.
yeah. So on the day, yeah, we're involved in obviously the rehearsal, any pre and post events that they might have that they need help with, and then just the setup of everything on the day, just looking after everybody until basically until we're needed. Depending on the venue, we might have to stay until the end of the night, which can be a long day, but sometimes it's better to stay till the end just to make sure people are happy.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I can imagine it's quite a rewarding job. Just, I mean, even being a photographer myself, I know being a vendor and putting into a wedding is when everything just comes together and works really well. But yeah, is there anything you would say is like your favorite thing, or what do you love the most about what you do?
My favorite bit is the actual wedding day, the delivery. You spend so long talking to your couples and getting to know them, and they kind of like become your friends. You're following their lives on Instagram or whatever, and then you get to be part of their special day and you get to listen to the speeches. And it's always like the dad's speech who makes you cry a little bit because you know them at that point. So just the actual delivery day is I like the most. Like actually seeing how happy people are when they're walking down the aisle, and that just happiness, the pure joy when they do their vows. And yeah, I'd say the planning isn't always fun, but the actual delivery of the wedding day is like the best part and the best feeling once you've, delivered this amazing wedding and everyone's happy. Like that is the best bit. And the messages you get afterwards, the thank yous, and but it's almost like surreal because we have this relationship with people, and I could have been talking to somebody for 2 years, and then once they get married, you don't talk to them anymore, and it's really weird.
I know.
Yeah, it's like you go through like a divorce with your client afterwards, like much like thanks for having us, and congratulations and enjoy your life together, and then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's finished now. Want to
Oh,
do it again?
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's definitely a hard part of it. Yeah, I love that. Just seeing it all come together and all the emotion on the day. It's pretty, very lucky to be part of such like happy occasions.
Yeah, it is nice, and all the little when people put their personality into it as well. So they have like some little personal touches that are significant to them, like what we did with our records, or um, I did um, I did coordination for Sophie and Jamie who own Truly Yours when they got married. Sure, they had like a little hockey player and a skier on top of their cake. So like anything to do that's personal with the couple, like really love those little elements as well because it's about them. It's not just the wedding. It's like, oh, we want to do this and I'll touch
Makes
it.
it different and unique. Yeah. And yeah, that you touched on kind of the people trying to save a bit of money in this time, doing a bit more budget weddings this season. Definitely seeing more of that. But yeah, is there any other kind of trends that you've noticed lately or you think will be seen more of in the upcoming season?
There's definitely a lot of draping going on.
Mm.
And there's a lot of bows going on. I feel like that's definitely like a trend of like different color drapes and that kind of stuff. But basically, with One Fine Day, I'm more logistics, and we have a styling team, so I don't really get to style as such. I can definitely help with that aspect. Not that I can't style. So they would kind of see more of what the current trends would be. I think there's definitely like a lot of tapered candles going out this season rather than the sort of the vase type ones. It's hard though to predict what will be the imagery that we're seeing now is weddings from last season. So though that's the trend, people are looking at those going, oh, I want that moving forward. So it's hard to, you've got to be a trendsetter yourself. You've got to
Yeah,
start something. I
exactly.
might have started something with the records.
Yeah.
Um, I've definitely seen lots of draping in style sheets and bowls. There's lots of that going.
So true. Do you think we kind of follow like Europe or America, those kind of seasons, it sort of trickles down to New Zealand. I guess, I don't know, our weddings are very different here sometimes, but yeah, it's interesting to see what comes through.
I I've obviously got a lot of friends in the UK, and I've look at weddings, and I feel like the weddings in the UK. Oh, none of my friends look at this. Are a bit dated, just in terms of, not that they're not all beautiful weddings, but in terms of, I feel like New Zealand has really stepped up its game in terms of like furniture. You know, we've gone from having standard hire furniture from, you know, whoever, to having some vendors that have really beautiful pieces that other countries don't have. I mean, when I'm looking at weddings in Europe, they're still on the gladiator chair and the chivalry chair. They're very like, you know, if you watch an American movie and it's a wedding, they're using a chivalry chair. Like, don't think we've had a chivalry chair at any of our weddings since I've worked at One Fine Day. Not that there's anything wrong with a chivalry chair, but you know, there's definitely like nicer pieces. I feel like New Zealand's a bit of ahead of the game in that respect.
Yeah, that's true actually. We do have so many talented vendors and different businesses here that there's yeah, a lot more options, and I know what you mean. Some of those weddings over there are a bit behind, or yeah, I shot a few when I lived a few years in the UK, so I yeah, definitely can see a bit of the difference there. But yeah, we are very creative and savvy business people in New Zealand, I feel like too. So nice to be kind of ahead of the game a bit, which we're not always first in some areas.
There's a lot of sashes around chairs still happening, which I don't think we've done for at least 10 years. And there's a lot of wooden things and rusticness,
Mm,
also
yeah.
very 10 years ago, because that's what weddings looked like when I started doing them. They were very rustic and you know, we've evolved from that. I think some countries are still on the old rustic vibe. So yeah, we've got a lot of creative people here, and
Mm,
it'd be a better place to get married.
yeah, pretty stunning scenery as well, especially
Yeah,
down in Otago where you are.
yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, so good. And is there any kind of career highlight weddings you can think of that you've been a part of, or yeah, any stories that come to mind that yeah, were just like amazing weddings to work on?
I've done quite a few weddings, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't really say highlight because I think it's like nice to be involved in all of the weddings, and so I wouldn't really want to say that
It's a
any
bit
of
of an annoying question. I when people ask me that, I'm like, I don't have a favorite.
me, just because of the nature of my job, all of the weddings that we do, I think I'm absolutely honoured to be part of them. There's definitely some for, I think the ones that we do for other vendors are always special because we know them. So, like I said, helped Sophie and Jamie from Trulio's with their wedding. They planned it themselves, but I did the coordination for them, and they were supposed to get married through COVID when we were in lockdown, so I had to postpone their wedding just before we went into lockdown. So I already had that relationship for that with them, so it was quite nice when their wedding day finally came that they got to have their day, which, so I think that was a nice wedding to be a part of, especially given what they had to go through to get to their day. Then I helped Trish Peng with her wedding, so that was quite special. Bit of an honour to do that for Trish, being the wedding dress legend that she is, and a lot of our brides do come with, you know, they all go to Trish for their dresses, so it is nice to, we did her wedding. So it was nice. Trish's wedding. Trish's wedding was funny. They wanted they put an order in for McDonald's for a late night snack. So when I went to get the McDonald's order, I got a call to say that they wanted some tequila as well. But I was already pretty much back to the venue at that point when I got the call for the tequila. But I live not far from the venue, so I went to my house and got a bottle of tequila, and I gave them that. But there was a bit missing at the top. And I gave it to Trish, and she said, "Oh, you've already had a drink." I'm like, no, it's just from my house.
Oh, I love
So that was
it.
quite nice to do hers. But like I said, um, I think it's an honour to be part of anyone's wedding, and anybody who comes to us, I'm always grateful that people choose us. So all the weddings are good.
Yeah, and One Fun Day covers all over New Zealand pretty much. Yeah.
All of New Zealand. We'd like to do more, but majority of our weddings are based in Queenstown and Wanaka, just because everybody wants to come here. But we can do them wherever. We've done quite a few on Waiheke, Hawke's Bay. Um, we've got a wedding in Cambridge next year. So yeah, we can pretty much go wherever people need us to go.
Yeah, so good. And is there any sort of common mistakes that you see couples making when they're planning their wedding? Yeah, anything that comes to mind?
I feel like a lot of people will say this, but it's the expectation versus reality. Social media, Pinterest and I think that's the same in any aspect of life. The expectation versus reality is like really different, especially like budget wise. You could be looking at the most beautiful wedding full of flowers and you want that, but the reality is those weddings cost a lot of money. Flowers cost a lot of money. I think, yeah, which can, you know, be detrimental to anyone's planning if you've got an idea in your head what you want, but you can't actually afford it. So definitely think people should. It's nice to look at Pinterest and to get ideas, but also have it. I guess it's hard to say. I guess it's hard to say have an idea of a budget in mind. Yeah, because you don't know how much things cost until you get into it. You can do as much research as you like, but I think you don't really know how much a wedding costs until you get into it, until you say what you want. And there's definitely things that people can cut from their wedding, a want and a must have. Is that the right way to say it? Like something that's
Yeah.
essential and then something that's okay. If we've got enough money, we'll have this. If we
Yeah,
don't, it's
yeah.
not.
Choosing a few priorities and then, yeah, nice to haves, but yeah.
And that's just based on what's happening with couples being a bit more budget conscious. They then want something that looks a certain way, but you've got to put a lot more money into that, so to speak. So yeah, social media,
Mm,
it's good and it's
yeah.
not. It can be a bit of a buzzkill.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you've given so much amazing advice already, but yeah, is there any other advice that you would say to from the perspective of a bride and a wedding vendor, but yeah, that you would say to couples that are planning their wedding at the moment?
Just don't get hung up on the small things, like especially the weather. Okay, prime example. I spent so much time looking at the weather
So hard not
lead up
to.
to my wedding day, even on the wedding day, on the morning of. I'll tell you a story. On the morning of the wedding, when I was looking at the weather so much, and then it was just looking like it was raining, and we'd hired a house and stayed in an Airbnb. And I went to make myself a cup of tea, and this was like 7:30 in the morning. I never ever get up that early. Um, and I pulled a mug out of the closet, out of the cupboard, and on the mug there was a little poo emoji, and then it said happens underneath, as if like shit happens. And that was like my motto for the day, that I'd gone to make a cup of tea, and this was the picture of the mug that I'd found, like a cup of the emoji on. So kind of just thought, it's out of my control. There's nothing I can do about it. It's fine. So I think just, don't get hung up about the small things. About the wedding. It's about the marriage. Like,
Absolutely. That's great advice. I think if you can go into it with that attitude, because there's always going to be something little that goes wrong or comes up, and it's probably not going to ruin your entire day. So just, yeah, have that attitude, embrace whatever comes. And yeah,
exactly.
as long as you get married at the end of the day, then you're
Yeah.
good to go.
If anything, it adds to the story. If something goes wrong, because it wouldn't
Exactly.
really be a wedding if something didn't go wrong, because nothing ever goes smoothly. But if something did happen, maybe your wedding planner or your caterer or one of your vendors fixed it before you knew about it. But
Exactly. That's
definitely
why you hire them.
go into it open minded and just don't worry about those small things. And something's going to go wrong, it's going to happen, and you just have to roll with it. It's
So
not the end
good.
of the
Love
world.
that.
Have a shot of tequila, you'll be fine.
Fixes everything. So good. I feel like that's some key Kim advice. Love it.
If it's not going your way, have a shot, you'll be fine.
Amazing. It's been so lovely to chat to you today. Is there anything else you want to add as we wrap up?
Not really. I feel like I've rambled on a little bit.
No, it's great.
Thank you.